wounded and ended up behind enemy lines. He was taken by a local village and healed of his wounds. The BBC made a drama based on the experience of Isaac Vallejo. And in another program made by Al Jazeera, a documentary, it interviewed members of the families who helped and nursed Isaac. It is believed that over 50,000 African troops died in the Second World War. Many in Europe and many throughout the war against Japan. And indeed, that figure doesn't include the thousands of Ethiopian soldiers and civilians who perished in the Italian invasion of Ethiopia. I think of Suleiman Yusuf, a young Islamic man who left his home in Nairobi to join the King's African Rifles, and he was sent to Myanmar. After the war, he was repatriated, not to Kenya, but instead to the region Somali region of Ethiopia. He wasn't even repatriated to his own country. And he was left with no means to get home to Kenya. And sadly, he also did not receive the end of war bonus promised to all soldiers returning from the Second World War. He was wounded, but he never received a disability pension for the injuries he sustained. His son, Amir, said, "My father should have been paid properly because he fought for Britain. I felt sorry for him. He did his best." Now, he did receive a professional reference in 1952 from Gerald Pink, the then British consul in Harare, eastern Ethiopia. And I'd like to read that reference for you. It's a good reference. In part, I think, I'm sure Mr. Pink didn't mean it, but in part, it's ironically humorous. To whom it may concern, bearer Suleiman Yusuf, a British protected person, has worked for me on and off during the past 3 years, both as a chauffeur and head servant. He has also worked as a relief chauffeur in the consul. As a chauffeur, he can drive many types of vehicles safely and efficiently. He's also a fair mechanic. As a personal servant, come valet, I can strongly recommend him, both for work in the house and on tour. He can look after clothes, serve drinks, and keep the house clean. He's very honest, careful of his appearance, and is cheerful and willing. He speaks several languages with a little English and has traveled much in Somaliland, Somalia, Kenya, and Aden. He doesn't mention Burma. During the war, he served in India and Burma. I can strongly recommend him to any potential employer, either as a servant or as a driver or as both. He left my employment some months ago as he wanted a change of scene. Now that he has returned to Harar, where his home is, I cannot employ him again, as I've no vacancy for him, much to my regret. G.F. Pink, His Majesty's Consul. I was fascinated by someone, Joseph. He can drive any car, he's a fair mechanic, he can cook, he can clean, he can look after your clothes, serve drinks. I actually thought that he should be the honorary consul in Ethiopia, as well as fight wars on your behalf as well. Many of these men were completely forgotten. But in 2019, Prince Harry met with veterans at Burma Barracks in Lusaka, Zambia. And the Prince spoke to one veteran in particular, Justin Khoza, who is a keen supporter of the annual poppy appeal. He always lays the poppy wreath at the annual Cenotaph Parade in Lusaka. Justin Khoza never escaped poverty. In 2018, the British government did announce a £12 million package to help poor African veterans. Many former army officers, through regimental associations and the Royal Commonwealth Ex-Service League, now raises funds to help African veterans. So in many ways it was thanks to Prince Harry using his status to raise the issue of African soldiers, many of them who still live in poverty, who served during the Second World War. I personally believe more could be and more should be done for our brave African veterans who went out in the Second World War. Not many of them are left, but they went out to fight against the greatest evil this world has ever seen, fascism. I leave the final words to Justin Khoza, and they are his words. And although he spoke many other languages, he could manage some English, which is often forgotten that many Africans not only speak in English, but speak 2 or 3 of their own indigenous languages. And these are the words of Justin Khoza. British and ourselves, we suffered together. After when we came back, I will never have forgotten you, and you will have never forgotten me, because we suffered together. The words of Justin Khoza. Our African soldiers will be remembered.